Episode 27. We're about to talk about nothing, gentlemen. The best kind of nothing there is. I'm Scott Sterl, joined with Ben Russo and Matt Urich, and uh, this could be the podcast that ends up.
Breaking the internet.
Well, it could be that, and also we might, due to some technical difficulties, episode 26 may turn into the lost episode.
That's true, it may.
So down the road one day, people will be like, "Hey, what happened to episode 26?" We'll be like, "Oh, what do you mean? What happened to episode 26?"
And if
And we'll kind of talk about it the way Michael Scott on The Office talks about, like, "Hey, this children's hospital, who built that?" "Oh, it's an anonymous donation from Michael Scott." Well, who's Michael Scott?
I'm Michael Scott.
I'm Michael Scott. It's no longer an anonymous donation at all. But anyways, we're not here to talk about The Office. We're here to talk about the show about nothing. We're here to talk about Seinfeld tonight because we all love it. I love it. You love it. The American people love it. And
Most American people.
Well, if you don't love it, I'm pretty sure you're communist. So
that bold statement there from one Scott Searle.
There was a Seinfeld where they talked. Kramer wanted to be communist, maybe.
Elaine dated a communist.
That's the one. Elaine dated the communist.
You know which one we forgot?
Which one?
A lot.
The ribbon.
Oh, the
AIDS walk. AIDS walk's a good one.
You got to wear the ribbon.
You have to wear the ribbon. But we have another episode that features the street toughs.
We do.
So here's the thing. We by no means are going to say that this is the definitive list, because this list is like,
it's like picking your favorite child.
Yeah, and I would say like the top 4 are pretty definitive. I think if you talk to most people, those 4 would be pretty much in anybody's top 10. After that, it becomes just a hodgepodge of what people like. I struggled with my criteria of how I wanted to do this, because as anybody that has watched Seinfeld knows, Seinfeld, the vernacular is still in our culture today. I mean, we're almost we're 15, 16 years past the final episode, and I could still look at you and go, "What if we were gay?"
Not that there's anything.
Right, exactly. Not that there's anything wrong about that. Did you guys know you can yada yada sex? We learned that from Seinfeld. So lots of good stuff, lots of moments. So I tried my best here to separate the moments from the episodes, because although there are some great moments, not necessarily a top 10 episode in that. We talked about like Festivus, and the poll, and that's not in the top 10.
Well, part of it too is like there were just so many episodes, and like for example, like I didn't put. Well, I don't want to. There was an episode where I was thinking of one scene that I was like, oh, that was really funny, but I'm like, oh, there were better episodes, and then that episode ended up being on our list, and I'm like, oh my god, I forgot all this other stuff happened in it, and I'll get to it, because this episode is on the list. I obviously don't want to give it away,
right?
But I think what we should talk about is. And as I've gotten older, I've appreciated it a little bit more, but how disappointing that final episode was.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I watched it, I did not like it at all. I was like, wow, did they really force this episode down our throat, bringing all these people back?
Mm-hmm.
And again, as I've gotten older, I've appreciated it a little bit more, but still to this day, I was like, there's got to be more, because you can't end the show that way. And
well, and they've acknowledged as much on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Right.
They came back on Curb Your Enthusiasm to redo it because they're like, yeah, we fucked that one pretty bad.
Well, and I think their biggest issue was no matter what they did in that situation, I think it was going to be difficult. I understand like what they wanted to do.
Right, because there really isn't a storyline to the...
Exactly. It's every... there's little bits of storyline that might flow from, like, episode to episode in certain seasons, George and Susan and stuff like that. But in the end, it was never, like, you're going from point A to point B in, like, certain shows, like How I Met Your Mother, for example, is a show that what the end result was going to be. and so there's something to live up to in that finale. While like the finale of Seinfeld was, it was great to see all these old characters come back, but it was just so thrown in there like so quick. You know what I mean? It's just everything happened so quickly. It was too much all at once.
Yeah, Seinfeld at the end would have been better off just having a regular episode
Right.
to end it, and it's been like, yep, and that's the end. But there could be more.
It kind of was like, honestly, I probably would have appreciated it more not having all those people come back, because honestly, like the concept of going to jail for the Good Samaritan law, like, is so perfect for Seinfeld. It was just the fact that they brought like every like marquee past person back
to show like how terrible they are, sort of thing.
Right. They could have just put him in jail, and that would have been fine, and no need to do like the full trial type scenario. So we all, I think, had some episodes on here that didn't make our top 10. Ben, you had two. Do you want to talk about those two quickly?
Yeah, the first one that honestly, when I put my list together, I thought of these afterwards, and I was trying to finagle them in, but I couldn't remove anything. But the Hamptons episode, which is famous for the shrinkage scene when Jerry's girlfriend walks in on George after he's changing, getting out of the pool, and kind of chuckles and giggles and walks out, and George starts screaming, "Shrinkage!
I was in the pool! I was in the pool!"
And then it leads up to, was it Kramer stealing the lobster out of that basket, and then George cooking it in the eggs, and like the girl ends up eating it, and he's talking about how it shrinks and whatever. Just a great all-time episode. And then the episode is called The Stall. This is the reason I remember it the most is because I laughed hysterically because Dan Cortez played a character named Tony, and George like fell in love with Tony because Tony was Mr. Cool, and George just wanted to be him, and they go mountain climbing, and George screws up, and Tony falls off the mountain and messes up his face. And then George brings the comic when he's bringing him the comic books. I could just picture it in my head because Tony's like screaming, "I don't want to see you right now, George." And then he's like, "Oh, I got comic books," and like he kind of like waves them in. Just that scene makes me laugh hysterically every time. But there's probably like 100 other episodes I could have put in here, but those two just stood out to me.
Matt, you had an all-time favorite of yours that didn't make the list, and I'll let you talk about that quickly.
Mine was the Chinese restaurant. It's very early. It may be season 2, season 3. I'm not exactly sure, but really, really early, and it's so just mundane. It's George, Jerry, and Elaine. They're waiting at the Chinese restaurant to get a table, and like they're waiting. They want to go to a movie. Jerry lies to his uncle and says he had something going on that night, or he was sick, one or the other, so he couldn't go with him to the movie. And then he sees a woman who works with his uncle. A guy comes in and gets a seat in front of Jerry and Elaine and George because, according to the Chinese guy, he's here all the time. And it's so. And then he starts yelling Cartwright. The Chinese restaurant owner is yelling Cartwright, and they don't respond. And then later Jerry comes up. He's like, "How long until we're gonna get a table?" And he's like, "I called your name." He's like, "What'd you yell?" He's like, "I yelled Cartwright." He's like, "What's that Seinfeld?" It's so silly. It's funny though. It's just an all timer.
So the two that I have that didn't make the list,
that you didn't even put on your list.
Yeah, because I have the post-its on the
reoccurring theme here.
I know. Number one is the sponge, and that's the one where Elaine goes on a hunt for all of the Today sponges all over the city. George and Susan try to have makeup sex, but she needs the sponge, and he can't get it because it's gone, and Elaine won't give him one. Elaine is determining if men are sponge-worthy.
Yes.
Jerry gets a girl's number off the AIDS walk list, and it scratches out the number of the size of his jeans, and of course Kramer refuses to wear the AIDS ribbon.
So that was just on the other night too.
So that's a great one. That's a great episode. And then my other one, which is inexcusable that it's not I left it off, and I left it off completely on accident because it's literally on the post-its on my counter behind me. It's called The Voice, and Jerry has a voice for Elaine's or not Elaine, for his girlfriend's belly button.
Hello.
Right.
La la la.
I'm slippery as an eel. So you have that moment, which is great. Kramer gets an intern from NYU.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
George works.
That
at
was the
Wayne-
same episode?
Yes,
See, that's what I'm talking about.
George is on the outs at Play Now because in the episode before he ran with his what do you call it?
Oh, the donation cards?
No, not the donation card. He pretends he's handicapped.
Oh, yes.
And they give him the handicap bathroom, and then he runs
yeah,
down the
yeah.
street carrying his motorized cart, and his boss sees him, and so they want to fire him, but he's under contract, so they do everything to fire him. And they Darren and Kramer go to test out the big rubber ball of oil, and it falls on the woman in the parking lot that Jerry's dating. So there's that, and then Elaine does something in that episode, and I can't even remember what it is. Oh my god! Her story it's like the fourth story, and it's not even like it would be a top one on any other episode. But so that was really good, and I'm really mad that we didn't have that one on there, and more at myself. Oh, and Elaine bets Jerry that she won't get back together with Putty. And they keep betting. And there's the scene where Jerry's smoking a cigar at the table laughing as she's paying him for the fourth time. So I love that episode. And it was one of the first ones I thought of, and then somehow it just didn't end up on my list, and I was really upset because I was like, how did The Voice not get on there? And Ben's like, because you didn't put it on your list, Scott. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then it sure enough wasn't on there. So, but that is I love that episode. I really do. Also the little Jerry, because, that moment when Jerry looks at Kramer, or George, he goes, little Jerry ran from here to Newman's in 32 seconds. Is that good? No idea. So, all right. So we're 12 minutes in. We've got 10 episodes to really talk about here, and they're all very, very, very good. And so let's get to it. Number 10 is the hot tub episode. And the hot tub episode was in the seventh season, episode 5. And this is when Jerry or Elaine is hosting John Paul, the marathon runner from Trinidad. So your storylines for this are Elaine is hosting the guy from Trinidad, and Jerry is criticizing her alarm clock situation. Jerry takes over for Elaine midway through the episode after John Paul gets kicked out of her apartment building for calling the baby a bastard. Because George is calling everybody a bastard and a son of a bitch because he's doing a fun job with the Houston Astros. Kramer has bought a hot tub, and then he gets hypothermia when he falls asleep in it at night because it blows a fuse.
Because it blew the fuse.
And that's it. That's your storylines there. So I think the vernacular that we get from this episode is AM PM. It wasn't the AM PM. Was it the volume? It wasn't the volume. It was separate knobs. That's one of the best. That moment right there. Separate knobs for the volume for the alarm and the volume for the radio, as he calls it. So love it. Love that. Yeah, great episode, Matt. What's your what do you any subtle parts of that episode that you love?
I don't know if it's really subtle, but my favorite is when Kramer's been drinking coffee to get his temperature back up, or tea or whatever it was, and John Paul grabs it when he's running by for the race.
Yeah.
Because he thinks it's water. Like that part gets me. Yeah, dumps it on him. So, that's the best. And he loses the race because he was in the lead, I believe. So,
I think so.
I don't know that we ever find out actually what happens. He just burns himself in that end episode. Ben, anything else from that episode?
I liked when they were at the hotel because obviously remember before John Paul had to sleep on Jerry's couch. They were trying to get him to sleep at the hotel, and Jerry's testing the alarm clock, and he calls the front desk, and he's like, I need a wake-up call at 6 a.m., whatever time, 6 a.m., and he's like, got it, and he's like, 6 a.m. sharp, that's 6 in the morning, and the guy's like, I got it, and he just keeps pushing him, and he finally hangs up, and he's like, I don't trust it. You gotta sleep at my house. Like, just the whole that whole scene in the hotel room, because Jerry, remember, he took John Paul back because he got the call because because John Paul couldn't trust Elaine anymore. So
I got the call. John Paul. John Paul. I'm already hating this podcast a ton because as we're sitting here talking about this one, I thought of another Seinfeld, the Andrea Doria, where Jordan bids for the apartment. I remember that one. I don't know why, but I love that one too.
He talked about all the terrible things that's happened in his life. Yeah.
There I was, 8 years old, naked, in the rest stop. Thank you, George. All right, here we go. So great start to the list. Number 9. I love number 9. This one's good. The Muffin Tops. Ben, do you want to give the synopsis here on this one, or would you like me to go with it? Or Matt, do you want to jump in?
You can go ahead, because I think this is going to be a recurring theme. Is I remembered this episode, but I don't remember like all the secondary and
I'm with Ben. Like,
along with it, like. I like looked up like the plot summary of all these, and then like I'm like, oh my god, I forgot the whole bus tour thing.
Yeah. So
all right. So here's your synopsis. Kramer does the real Peterman
which are all
tour around the city.
Which is also, do you know what that is? A play off of.
No, what is it a play off of?
So the guy who Kramer is based off of, Larry David's friend, he did that. He made his own The Real Kramer tour. And then that's what that storyline is based off of. Larry David wrote that about his friend who made up a bus tour about himself being Kramer.
I love it. Absolutely love it. So Kramer has the Real Peterman bus tour. My favorite part of that is when Kramer offers the pizza on a cinnamon raisin bagel as a treat. That's really good. So you got that. Jerry is shaving his chest.
Yes, yeah.
And Kramer yells at him about that, so that's a really good one.
And that's when he's on the bus at the end, and he's really itchy, and he gets out and rips his shirt open and starts howling at the moon, just scratching his chest.
And that is such an iconic moment, like the whole bus tour thing. And I don't even think it's the best part of the episode because, and Elaine, she does the Muffin Tops thing. She has to get rid of the Muffin Tops, and that's fine. Like, that's a decent storyline. But the best part of this whole storyline is George gets the suitcase and he becomes a tourist. He wears all the clothes and he's a tourist, and the woman he's like dating from the New York Tourist Bureau doesn't think he can survive for 5 minutes.
New York City will eat you alive.
Oh, it's such a good.
But remember, this George got traded for the chicken. That episode.
To the chicken place or whatever. Yeah.
Tyson. Yeah, Roger's chicken becomes the official chicken of the New York Yankees,
and they'll have alcoholic chicken. And Steinbrenner's like, "What's alcoholic chicken?" He's like, "You just let it ferment."
Oh my god. Oh, good episode. Any other comments on that one?
No.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. The whole episode, especially with the fact that he was doing the Peterman tour and none of the stories were actually true about J. Peterman.
I returned the pants that I had been wearing.
I totally forgot about the pizza and the cinnamon.
That's the best. And a Snickers bar. And they get a fun-sized Snickers. So Kramer. Okay, our 8th on the list is from season 5. It's episode 21, and this is it's called The Opposite. So yeah, go ahead.
Before you get started, this was the episode I was talking about where the scene I remember was when Elaine walks into his apartment, crumples up the $20 bill and throws it out the window.
And then he puts his jacket on
and finds $20 in his pocket.
And
Like I
Kramer
remember,
calls him even Steven.
yeah. Yeah. Like I remember that scene, and then I forgot all the other stuff, especially obviously with George and Ellen, obviously. And Jerry becoming even Steven because Elaine turns into George and George turns into Elaine.
My name is George. I'm unemployed and I live with my parents.
Oh, you want to go for lunch?
And then I also enjoy. Elaine finds out that Jake has met her boyfriend. Jake is in an accident, and she stops to get the Juji fruits.
Juji fruits, yep.
Stops for some Juji fruits.
And he's like, "Where'd you get those?"
At the movie theater. Before or after you heard about me? That's a good one.
Also another great part is that's when Kramer goes on Regis and Kathy Lee with his book, and then he spills coffee all over Kathy Lee.
Yes. And speaking of candy, another one not on our list here, the Junior Mint.
Junior Mint. I watched that episode last night.
It's a good episode. I think it's more known for its moment than it is for
it itself.
All right, so that's number 8. 7. There's gonna be so much laughing on this podcast that people won't even understand us, but we don't care.
I can't believe I forgot this one. I cannot believe.
Really? Yeah.
The Jimmy.
And again, this is where the name
really
of the
likes...
episode isn't even the best part of the episode.
Jimmy really likes Elaine. Jimmy really wants to put the moves on Elaine. Don't touch Jimmy. Yes, Jimmy is a character that speaks in the third person. He plays basketball with George and Jerry, and he has a very special shoe to help his leaping ability. So you have a few things happening in this episode. Jimmy gets hurt because Kramer spits all the water out of his mouth at the gym because he had from the Novocaine.
Which do we remember who the dentist was?
Tim Whatley, also known as what's his name from Breaking Bad, and
Bryan Cranston.
There you go. Bryan Cranston
was the dentist.
Somehow that guy parlayed Tim Whatley and the dad from Malcolm in the Middle into one of the greatest roles in television, and has now been nominated for an Oscar.
And he also played the neighbor on King of Queens.
If you would have told me after he was the dad on Malcolm in the Middle that guy would be maybe the most one of the top 5 actors in Hollywood in 2016, I would have laughed at you. I'd been like, you're fucking kidding me. So here's the episode. George then goes on the sales call for the shoe to the Foot Locker or whatever, and can't jump, so he blows it for Jimmy. Elaine wants to date Jimmy, but she doesn't realize that Jimmy is Jimmy. She thinks Jimmy is the other guy on the treadmill who ends up being gay.
Yeah.
Jerry wakes up in Tim Whatley's dental chair, with the dental assistant buttoning up her shirt and Whatley buttoning up his shirt.
That's also they find he finds the Penthouse magazines in the waiting room too.
And then the best part of the episode is when Kramer is presumed to be mentally handicapped.
Isn't it because he's wearing the shoes too?
He's wearing the shoes
and the Novocaine.
And he comes out to the taxi cab, and is that Mel Torme?
Yes.
Yeah. And Mel Torme is like, "Oh no, you take the cab," and Kramer's like, "Well, shit, share the cab." I've been living on my own a long time now. And then he gets invited to the dinner for the handicapped people, and before he goes in, he gets punched in the mouth by Jimmy, so he's got the fat mouth again, and so he just looks it, and Mel Torme starts singing him the song, and
when you're smiling, and Kramer's just like giddy and.
Oh my god.
So good.
You can't do that anymore on TV. Like that episode, there's no way that episode would fly nowadays.
No, not at all.
I agree.
Also, I didn't realize this. I saw this on the quick Wikipedia write-up. It says, in the credits scene, Kramer picks up a copy of Penthouse magazine and reads a letter from an unnamed dentist who apparently recently had a little fun with his dental hygienist and one of his patients. And it says Jerry looks on in horror and is assumed to be the victim of sexual assault. That is not flying in 2016.
I love every bit of that. I love that episode, and the fact that it's number 7 on this list.
And wasn't George? This is the episode where George eats the spicy chicken, right?
Yeah, the Kung Pao chicken.
George likes spicy chicken.
And gets accused of stealing all the Yankees equipment because he's sweating profusely when they're questioning him about it.
Yeah. Oh my god, amazing. I'm reading another synopsis here, so that's good. Love that episode. 6, The Bubble Boy. Season 4, episode 7. George almost kills the Bubble Boy, which is the best moment of the episode.
The Moops.
I'm sorry, it's the Moops.
The Moors.
The misprints. It's the Moors. Well, it says here the Moops, and then he starts strangling them, and he pops the bubble, and the Bubble Boy's gonna die, and Jerry's at the diner arguing with them over the autograph, and they come back in, and oh my god, and somebody runs in. There's something wrong with the Bubble Boy, and they run over to the house, and everybody's like really bad about the Bubble.
They said he was attacked by a bald man from the city.
And then while all this is happening, Kramer burns down Susan's father's cabin, which leads to another funny moment a couple episodes later with the Cheever letters, which is absolutely hilarious. I just love when Susan opens the box in that episode and she starts reading, "I can't wait to be in your tender embrace again." She's like, "What is this?" And her dad starts screaming, "He's a better lover than all of you will ever know." And then all spawns because Kramer burnt it down with the cigars.
The cigars, yep. The Cubans.
God, I love that episode. The Bubble Boy.
Oh.
So, all right, so let's recap 6 through 10. 6 was the Bubble Boy, 7 is the Jimmy, 8 is the opposite, 9 the Muffin Tops, and 10 is the Hot Tub. The top 5 is awesome. These are great episodes. I did not have number 5 on my list, and I forget it. Like you, Ben, this is one where I remember the whole Summer of George, and yeah, that's funny, but I forget one of my favorite things on this show ever is when Elaine walks into the apartment at Jerry's and is like, I don't know, Peterman started saying something about a cat fight, and Kramer stops dead in his tracks. Yeah, cat fight. A cat fight. What's the big deal about a cat fight? And Kramer's just sitting there going, "A cat fight." They might be scratching and clawing at each other, and it may kiss.
Yeah. Cat fight.
A cat fight. Kramer accidentally wins a Tony, and they tell him he can keep the Tony if he's willing to fire
Raquel Welch.
And and then George just turns into a lazy pile
because he's so excited.
He's got a severance package.
He's gonna do so much, and he's gonna be very active, and then he ends up being in the hospital at the end. Of the episode.
So much for this because he slips on
the envelope.
The envelopes.
And then he has to learn how to walk again.
Oh my god. That's the brilliance in Seinfeld, though. Is just they always had those little subtle things that connected things together, and just out of nowhere, oh hey, here's this little dig at George from when he made Susan lick the poisonous envelopes.
Well, and this episode was the Summer of George was the end of season 8, and at the end of season 7's when Susan dies, and
right.
it's a very similar because they all go to the hospital.
Remember the end of that episode? They're like, "You want to go get coffee?" So they all leave. Well, then the end of this one, it's the same exact scene just without George, and they're like, "Want to go get coffee?"
And also that's the one where Elaine, Molly Shannon's in that episode.
Yes, and she has the gorilla arms.
Yeah, and she walks like she's holding invisible suitcases, and she's also at the end. At the end, you see her learning how to walk by moving her arms. Like she's in the same place George is at the hospital.
Is Molly Shannon one of the most underappreciated cast members from Saturday Night Live history?
I don't know.
I wouldn't go that far. She was okay for what she was, but
I always liked her. I thought she was pretty solid. I
played the same character, just in different costumes.
Just like an awkward, nerdy person.
Fair enough. Oh man, good episode. Just I love the Summer of George because I know it's exactly like what my Summer of George would be. Like I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna do all this stuff. And then,
Isn't that when he learned to play Frolf or Ultimate Frisbee?
Yes.
Frolf.
Was it Frolf?
It was Frolf.
No, it was Ultimate Frisbee.
Are you sure? I thought it was Frolf.
I think it was Ultimate Frisbee.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. It doesn't matter. He's running up the stairs, and he slips on the envelope, and it's amazing. Summer of George. I'm trying to look it up right now. Nope, Frolf, Frisbee golf with some people.
There it is. Yeah,
An invitation falls on the box, lands on a stair. When George leaves again to deliver the invitations, he slips on the invitation, falls down the stairs, standing over there. What were the invitations for?
It just says Lynette needed invitations to a party.
Oh yeah, because that was
Jerry's girlfriend. Yeah.
A catfight.
Catfight.
All right.
Who does Raquel Welch fight in that?
Isn't it Amanda Peet?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Amanda Peet. And then Amanda Peet wasn't famous anymore after that. All right. Let's have a serious discussion about number 4 because there's 100 things we could rattle off from this episode. But I feel as though this is, even though it's number 4 on our list, and rightly so, I feel like this is the most overrated episode on Seinfeld.
I tend to agree.
I mean, it's really good.
Overrated?
Yeah, I think it's one of the most I think people have this automatically as their number 1, and we have it at 4, and that's all right. I mean, I'm not saying it's just people just automatically go, this is the number 1 episode, and it's like it's not though. And the episode I'm talking about is the Soup Nazi. Very good. Very good.
I don't know that I could say it's the most overrated episode. I mean, it's absolutely hysterical.
It's good.
Especially the end.
Yeah.
Elaine at the end is fantastic.
Yeah, when she just comes in reading
all the ingredients for this.
That's my crab bisque.
4 cups chopped porcini mushroom. You're done, Soup Nazi.
Next.
So this is the first episode where we get the street toughs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this armoire is beautiful. They steal it from Kramer on the street. And Elaine's like, what happened? And Kramer's like, a couple of street toughs took it from me. Did you try to stop them? I couldn't. They just took it from me. So you got Kramer, and Kramer becomes friends with the Soup Nazi because, of course, Kramer does. That's one of my favorite parts about Kramer is he just always is friends with everybody.
Well, just then, like Elaine walking in, like tapping her hands.
Anybody else tell you look like Al Pacino in Scent of a Woman?
Hoo-ah.
George.
Those are for you. Come back 1 year.
And then George. I didn't get any bread.
Oh, God.
Just forget about it, George. You want bread? $3 extra.
He's like, but he got his for free.
No, first it was $2.
Yeah.
And then he's like, but he got it for free. You want bread? $3.
What? No soup for you. And that was the end of it. It's great. Phenomenal.
It's also got Schmoopy.
Yes, the Schmoopy.
Here's my Schmoop.
I forgot about that.
And Jerry Jerry breaks up with the girl at the end, and Susan's like all about the Schmoopy now with George. And George is like, I only did this to annoy Jerry and show Jerry how much he's annoyed. I love George. George is the best. So let's do that conversation quickly before we get to the top 3. Who's the best character on Seinfeld?
I would probably say George, just because he's so terrible, but he's so likable, like all at the same time. Like George,
He's all of us.
yeah, like George is like his life sucks, but he catches breaks every once in a while. But in the end, his life pretty much sucks.
It's only a lie
If you
if
think
you
it's
think
a lie.
I do. It's George or Kramer. I mean, they're 1-2, right?
Yeah, well, and like Kramer is hilarious just because of how, the crazy situations he would get into. Like Kramer's stuff was always so far-fetched with a lot of things.
Doing the rickshaw. Also, along the lines of the rickshaw, because my dad, I texted back and forth with him on this, and he mentioned the rickshaw, and then the one that we don't have on here, which is really, really good, is where Kramer does the horse and buggy and feeds
the ride.
beefaroni.
Yeah, that was on my list, I think. I may have had that on mine.
Is that the Marble Rye?
The marble rye, where Jerry steals the marble rye, George hangs it hooks it with a fishing pole and tries to bring it back in.
Is the Marble Rye the same episode with the black and white cookie?
Yeah, they're sitting at the.
See,
the
that's what I'm
bakery or
saying.
whatever.
Like, I'd
Well,
have
I'm
to
pretty
watch
sure
like.
That's not the same episode as the black and white cookie, because Jerry pukes in the black and white cookie episode.
Yeah, he ends his puke streak.
Right. And this is where Jerry goes to get the last marble rye, and the woman in front of him buys it. And so he chases her down, and it's the old woman from Happy Gilmore.
Mm-hmm. And
And
she's in a couple episodes then.
And then she comes back later to haunt Jerry when Jerry's dad is trying to become president of the condo association.
Oh yeah.
And she sees Jerry and realizes who he is, and it costs Jerry's dad the election. I think they actually kick him out of the condo community.
He has that like Nixon leaving where he's got
he's
the
like
peace
the Nixon,
sign.
yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most underrated parts of the show is you have that whole community down in Florida where Jerry's dad lives, and they have their whole Del Boca Vista. So that's some good stuff. But it's probably right, like George and Kramer. George is 1, Kramer 2, Elaine 3, Jerry 4. Is that fair?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really tough, I think, to try to, you know what I mean? Like, because everybody has so many different,
Right.
One episode's like a really strong George episode, and the next one might be a really strong, whoever, Elaine episode or something. But, yeah, I mean, they're all good, in my opinion.
I liked, I just remember the one where George pretends to be the leader of the Nazi Revolution, O'Brien.
Oh, yeah, they're going to sit courtside at the Knicks Bulls game.
No, they're going to that. Okay, and then one last conversation before we go to the top 3. Your favorite non-main 4 character that recurs on the show. So you got your David Puddies, you got your Kenny Banyas, you got your Newmans.
Yeah, either Puddy or Newman.
It's Jackie Childs.
Oh, man, Jackie's good, too.
The real Peterman.
It might be Puddy just because that high five episode where he just wants to give her
high five.
High five.
Yeah, Puddy's great, and like Puddy's deadpan look, no matter what is going on, other than the Devils, he's so good.
I love
Patrick Warburton's terrific in it.
So the episode with the germaphobe, where Kramer cooks the food in his shower.
Yeah.
I love the part in that episode where Kramer calls Puddy to help him install the garbage disposal in the bathtub. And they Kramer calls and they cut to the phone ringing at Elaine's, and Puddy's just sitting on the couch just staring.
Yeah.
And then he answers the phone, he's like, "This is Puddy. Hi, is David Puddy there?" "This is Puddy." "Hi, David Puddy, this is Kramer." "Yeah, I know."
Just Christ.
Oh, so Puddy's good. I also like when Puddy is the car at the car dealership. When he works
that's the high five.
The high
episode.
five, right? That's the high five episode. Oh,
Where he just goes around giving everybody high fives.
yeah.
And that's where George tries to buy the candy bar or whatever out of the machine and gets stuck.
Yeah, the Twix.
The
Twix.
cookie, the candy lineup. They were all Twix. Yeah, I think Puddy. I like Puddy. I might give it to Peterman though. I love Peterman. He's a great character. There's something about him. I love when Elaine goes down and visits him in Africa, and he yells like gibberish at the woman in the cave, and Elaine's like, "What did you say?" I don't know. It was gibberish. Oh. All right, so Peterman and Putty right there at the top of the list. Good stuff. All right. So Soup Nazi, great episode. Not in our top 3, because number 3 is awesome. Number 3.
This was my number 1.
And number 2 is my number 1. Was number 1 your number 1, Matt?
I would believe so, yes.
Yeah, so Matt's number 1 is the number 1. Ben's number 1 is our number 3, and it is the Kenny Rogers Roasters episode, where the Kenny Rogers moves in, and there's the bright red light.
I don't even think this was on Matt's list.
No, it wasn't. Another one I forgot.
So I'll give you the 4-person synopsis here.
This is the one that stood out in my head. Like, when I thought about doing this list, it was because of this episode.
So Elaine gets questioned by her work because George buys the sable hat for $800. George has that hat he thinks stolen by the girl he's dating, so he steals her clock. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the episode that he goes, Costanza. Costanza. It's like the voice that gets stuck in your head. And now I'm thinking of the episode where George gets the wedgie from his old gym teacher outside the library. Just can't stand you. Can't stand you. Jerry. Nope, I'm on the wrong one. Jerry becomes Kramer. And Elaine has the problem. And the best part of that episode is when Jerry comes in.
And he whips open the door.
And he's like, I'm stressed. Oh, I'm stressed. And Elaine's got this problem. And Jerry's sitting there drinking or eating food out of his own fridge. And he's like, I was talking last night to my friend Bob Sacamano. And Kramer's like, you know Bob Sacamano? Well, he called me about 2 a.m. last night. We talked for about 4 hours.
It's just like the way he walks in, he opens that door, pure Kramer, he slides in, and they're like, it looks like you haven't gotten sleep. He's like, no sleep, no sleep.
And then Kramer becomes Jerry, and the best part of that is when Kramer's at the coffee shop with Elaine, and Elaine's like, I just can't talk to Jerry anymore, Kramer. And Kramer's like, well, people change, Elaine. And then Kramer's sneaking the Kenny Rogers with Newman. And I also love the part where Kramer eats the broccoli.
No. It's Newman eats the broccoli because Jerry catches Newman buying enough chicken for 2, and then he sees him eat the broccoli, and he forces Newman to eat the piece of broccoli, and he just like spits it all over the floor and starts like, choking.
Oh, it's so good.
But the ending scene with Kramer just like shaking in his bed, like the bed's like squeaking and stuff, like it sounds like somebody's having sex, but he's just eating the chicken, and then the lights go off because remember George comes in. I think it was George that came in with that fur hat and started
the sable hat
because it was raining.
Yes,
and the fur went everywhere.
It's the fake hat that they got from Bob Sacamano. That's not going to be good for business.
It's rat fur.
That's not going to be good for business. That's not going to be good for anybody. The Kenny Rogers.
Just a great episode. Like you said, I mean, people listening to us probably have no idea what happened in that episode because we just laughed at everything we said instead of actually told the story. But there's a million scenes in that episode that are just make you laugh hysterically. I mean, I think after this, I might actually just watch that.
I know. I was thinking about it too.
It's funny,
and it is interesting too that like this.
I forgot all about that broccoli scene, and now I'm just gonna laugh about it.
And it shows you how funny this show still was near the end. Like this was in season 8. They only had one more season after that. Like it's crazy how good they were for a while. I mean, they really were. And just that episode. Oh, I could.
6 of our 10 are from season 7, 8, or 9.
Yeah.
Episode 8 had the most. I think it had 3, or season 8. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then remember, George talks about how if there's any doubt if he has a chance at a second date, he always leaves an item behind at the girl's house.
So he has to come
so that
back.
way he can go back and get the item, and he's like, it's a guaranteed second date then. Like, And then Jerry's like, "It's so old. Why don't you just show up at the door in a wooden horse?"
God. That's amazing.
Oh God, I love it.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good, and it is what it is. God,
I forgot the stolen clock. That's like,
I think I'm gonna have to pop in season 8 tonight.
yeah.
So good.
So this is my favorite. This next one.
So good.
The episode starts with Kramer finding the entire old Merv Griffin show set in a dumpster, and he takes it all back to his apartment. So that sets the stage for everything. Elaine has the problem with the Seidler at work, who sneaks up behind her and is taking credit for projects that she did independently. George, this is where we get the deal with the pigeons. So George runs over a squirrel at some point because he's avoiding the pigeons because they won't get out of his way. Jerry has a girlfriend with an extensive toy collection that him and George end up giving sleeping pills to so they can play with her toys. And then the best part of this is Kramer sets the Merv Griffin show set up in his living room and actually starts hosting the Merv Griffin show. And the best is when they have the wildlife expert on. He's like, "Where are all the cameras?"
Or my favorite is like when Kramer, like, he's like, "All right, we're going to a commercial break," and then he opens up a Diet Coke and starts eating chips, and then like in the process of him not swallowing it, he's like, "And we're back."
Gotta go to a new format. And he has the music, and Jerry, what you do on your free time? Keep it clean. This is a family show, okay?
And then I also love when Jerry and George, Jerry brings George over to his girlfriend's for the toys, and they make he makes a big turkey dinner and red wine, and she's like, "What is it in turkey that makes you sleep?" And sleepy, and at the same time, Jerry and George go tryptophan.
Also, very subtle in that episode that I love. George brings over the childhood movies of them at a rest stop, and all you hear is George's mom screaming at George. Oh, don't watch this, guys. This is bad. That's great. And then Elaine gets plays with the Easy Bake Oven. She gets over there to play with that. That was funny. Oh, what an episode. What an episode. All right, number 1. Matthew Urich, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Are you still master of your domain?
Today, yeah.
Better. You still king of the castle?
Since when?
I'm a little concerned because
before the show, since
you weren't on camera there for about 3 minutes between episodes here that we recorded tonight. So, and I know for you that's just long enough. So,
I ran to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And got water.
We are, of course, talking about the contest. And this episode is tremendous because George is masturbating to what? It's Sears catalog, is that right?
No, it was less. Glamour magazine.
Glamour magazine.
You got to remember, he was caught by his mom.
And he gets caught by his mom masturbating to Glamour magazine.
She has to go to the hospital.
Why, George? Why? You treat your body like an amusement park. Jerry is dating a virgin. Kramer says he's going to be in, and he's out within an hour because Jerry
the lady across the way or whatever.
Jerry. And then, what's the last part? Oh, and then Elaine, John F. Kennedy Jr. is in her yoga class or whatever, and she just can't help herself because she's so attracted to JFK Jr. And I love the part where she walks in, and she's like, and they're like, "Oh my God, the Queen is dead." What was it? John F. Kennedy Jr. Also love the subtle dig at the end where they're gonna crash the plane in the final episode, and George comes clean. He's like, I cheated in the contest.
Yeah. I love when Kramer walks into the room, opens the door, and slams his money down on the table and goes, "I'm out." Like, I just
Yeah, it
love
was like
every
like
time.
30 seconds after they decided to do the contest.
Oh my god, amazing.
Then they get the insomnia and everything like that. So
Yeah, they're tossing and turning because they haven't masturbated in far too long, and you get so much from that episode. You know, are you still master of your domain? Also at the end, Marla gets with John F. Kennedy Jr., which is tremendous.
Yeah.
That so many things to love in that episode. I also enjoy the part where Kramer is sitting at the window watching The Naked Woman, and Jerry has Tiny Toon Adventures on, and is singing the songs along. The wheels on the bus go round and round. And Kramer's like, "Oh yeah, you should do that." And he's like,
well, then remember at the end he gets with the naked girl across the street.
Jerry? No, he doesn't get with her. Yes, he does, but Jerry masturbates to her first.
Yeah.
Because after Marla leaves, he walks over the window. He's like, "Well, all right." And he does the deed right there by his window because, of course, he does because he's Jerry. Oh, ooh, that was a good laugh this week, guys.
So good. I mean, it's amazing that the show that ended in what 98.
98, yeah.
I just thought of another one.
Yeah, go.
The 444 film when.
Hello and welcome to Movie Fest.
Oh God, I forgot about.
Press
Why
one.
don't you just tell me what you want to see?
Oh, that's great. That's such a good one.
Damn it, I forgot about that one.
I still love Festivus. I love when they go to
That's
the house.
another one that episode probably had a bunch of other stuff in it because that's one of those things where I remember that bit, but let's see if I can find it.
I also love the one where George has to Photoshop himself out of
his boss
Kruger's photo. Oh, that one's good. I also what else?
Also in light of the Kentucky Derby, his father was a mudder. His mudder was a mudder. His mudder was a mudder.
Yes. And then he has to like run away from the guy on the way to the subway because he's gonna get bugged because of all the money.
And that's also, I believe, when Elaine had taken one of George's dad's TV guides to read on the subway so people wouldn't talk to her, and then she ends up giving it to that guy or leaving it because she like couldn't deal with it anymore, and then George is freaking out because it was missing from his dad's collection, and then the guy ends up like showing up at their house
with the TV guide as a TV guide bouquet.
With do you remember who was on the TV guide?
Al Roker.
Yep.
How about going back to our conversation from earlier? We didn't discuss Mr. and Mrs. Seinfeld as possible secondary characters we love, Mr. and Mrs. Costanza, and let's not forget Uncle Leo.
Uncle Leo.
Hello, Jerry.
Big fan of Mr. Costanza because I think Jerry Stiller is hilarious and he is so funny in this show. I mean, he plays like senile old man like so well. He's a and did you know he's not the original guy who played George's dad?
Yes, and the mom was not the original mom for Jerry's mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's an episode in like season 5 or season 6. Jeez, I don't remember. I watched it yesterday, and it's the one where they go to buy the big screen TV for I can't think of the guy's name, and they park in the handicap spot.
Yes.
And then they come out, and the car's all getting beat up because that woman slid down the ramp.
Mimi from Drew Carey, the Drew Carey show.
Yeah, she's the one that's. She's not the one that was in the wheelchair, but she's the one.
No, she's the one that got the riot started.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my favorite George Costanza dad moment of all time is when George comes over. It's like, I was watching TV the other day, and a movie was on, The Net. You know, the one with the girl from the bus. And he's referencing Sandra Bullock. And then he starts selling computers out of his garage. And George is competing against Lloyd Braun.
Lloyd Braun.
You're not giving away my ice pick! And Lloyd Braun is just going crazy because of the Serenity Now. That's a great episode too, because in that episode, Kramer sets up the screen door on the front door of his apartment.
Oh yeah, so
We're gonna shoot fireworks off tonight at dusk. And they just look up and they're like, what?
oh god.
Oh, and Jerry gets mad in that episode too. That's the one where he teaches the woman teaches Jerry like he has to get mad. Isn't that Aunt Becky, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, Lori Loughlin.
Lori Loughlin plays Jerry's girlfriend. Man, just go through all these. They're all great. I mean, they're not all great. I mean, it was really bad. You know what? I was surprised. I saw the one that I'm talking about that's really bad. The one I saw the other day. They played on TBS the Puerto Rican flag episode.
Mm.
And
That one got like pulled like immediately too.
Yeah, I had never actually seen that one.
I think I've only seen it maybe once or twice, like because I've got it on the on DVD.
Yeah, but I've never seen I had never seen that one, and it actually is kind of funny. Like they all keep going into this apartment for sale to use the bathroom and stuff, and
yeah,
except for the part where Kramer.
So I found the movie phone episode. It's all jumping. It's all coming back to me, and I'm laughing. But this is also the Worlds Are Colliding episode when Susan and Elaine become friends.
I'm gonna put it in the vault.
And George has him go to the wrong movie theater, and he's brought out by security because he's just screaming "Worlds are colliding," and Susan, Jerry, and Elaine see him like being arrested, basically getting thrown out of the theater because he's screaming "Worlds are colliding."
Yeah.
And then Susan ends up breaking off the friendship because she says that Elaine and Jerry talk too much. And then also, this is what Jerry doesn't want to be friends with with the pool cleaner Ramon.
Yes, Ramon. And Ramon almost dies. You guys just let him lay there?
Cuban cannonball on him.
So another episode I totally forgot about, but it is. I love the way that it's shot. It's the betrayal where it starts
it's backwards to forwards.
Yeah, and Kramer's friend FDR, he wished that Kramer would drop dead in his birthday wish.
Is FDR the same guy that plays Keen Bean in Richie Rich? Is that the same guy?
It could be. Let me look it up.
I think it is. Can we just have a moment of awesomeness for Richie Rich and how awesome a movie that is?
Big ups to Macaulay Culkin. Yes, he was. He was Professor Keenbean in Richie Rich.
I am winning the subtle actor award tonight of, hey, I could pick out what other show that random actor was on one time.
And the crazy thing about Seinfeld, too, is especially because of how many girlfriends Jerry had and stuff, the amount of people who went on to be famous after being in Seinfeld.
Courtney Cox as Jerry's girlfriend. One episode.
I'm trying to think of some other. Looking up some other ones. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. All the different women. The chick with she was in Desperate Housewives. They're real and they're spectacular.
Oh, that was a good episode too.
What about the Mulva episode?
Oh, how did we leave that off?
Oh, when he just at the very end.
Oh, what is that? What episode is that? Because I think that's a really
I just
good
thought
one.
of it.
That's another one that I just watched yesterday too. I watched like 3 or 4 episodes before I went to bed last night. Do you remember that episode?
That's the Junior Mint episode.
Yeah.
That's a great episode. You know what? Now that I remember,
we dropped the ball on that one.
Yeah.
You know, you think it's just the Junior Mint episode where it's chocolate, it's peppermint, it's delicious, and then Malva. You don't know my name, do you? Malva. It rhymes with a part of the female anatomy.
What's the one? Oh God, George says one really, really funny name. Now I can't think of what it is. Bovary. Bovary.
Remember at the end, Jerry goes, Jipple, Loliola.
Oh my God,
Oh,
that's a good. And then the fat he's a fat starving artist. It's very rare.
Yeah, it was Bovary.
Yeah, because that's when George buys the triangles.
Yes, $1,800 because he.
He thought he was gonna die, so he thought that there'd be value in the triangles after he died.
And he got like the $1,800 because he kept putting like a quarter into something. Like,
Oh yeah, it was from when he was little. He had like a bond or whatever, one of those things where he gained interest off of like $7 he put away.
So apparently Mulva returns in another episode.
Yeah, Jerry and her are engaged, and then Jerry and her have the mutual breakup, like the best breakup in the history of the world.
Do you remember when he dated? Another one that I thought was really funny, but it was really only for like certain parts. Is the Bizarro Jerry, where Elaine starts hanging out with the people that are just like George and Kramer and Jerry, but they're all slightly different, and the apartment looks like Jerry's, but it's like the opposite.
Yes, and George, like the other George reads, and the other Jerry is just very mild mannered. And
the other Kramer knocks.
Yes, who is it? And it's whatever his name is from across the hall.
Oh.
So the doctor who did the surgery on the fat artist also pronounced Susan dead and was the doctor for George's injury in Summer of George.
I also love the episode where it ends with George's dad landing on Fusilli Jerry.
Yeah, I had Fusilli Jerry as one of my episodes.
That's a good one. If you ever meet a proctologist at a party, you just want to camp there the rest of the night.
Was that
100-to-1 shot, Doc. 100-to-1.
Was that also the Ass Man episode?
That's the Ass Man, because they go to the doctor at the end and they look at the painting on the wall or the picture on the wall of his boat and it says Ass Man.
Ass Man, yeah.
I'm Cosmo Kramer, the Ass Man. He starts dating all these women with big asses.
So classic.
Also, I like that. I rewatched that scene with Bookman, the library detective.
Oh,
I know we brought that up briefly earlier because
the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn.
Yes, that one's really good. John Lovitz might be the worst extra to ever be on the show. When he was the guy that had cancer.
I love John Lovitz. He's hilarious.
John Lovitz and The Wedding Singer is one of my favorite things ever. He's so good.
Sophisticated woman.
when he's like, he's losing his mind, and I'm gonna reap all the benefits. And he's got this glare, and then just the curtain covers his face. It's so good.
Oh my god. That's all good stuff. Very few episodes that can be on TV, and I'll be like, this one's not very good.
It's one of those things that if I'm flipping through the channels and I see that Seinfeld's on, I'm more than likely going to stop. It's
Seinfeld is the ultimate Shawshank TV show.
Yes.
It is.
Is there any show that compares?
No.
Yeah, I really don't think so.
Because like we talked about at the beginning,
one and then it's a distant two, right? For whatever you want to put.
Because every episode is its own season. Because you don't need to watch one episode to see the other. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of shows that are like that. Even like sitcoms, like they tie stuff. They always tie stuff together. Like Friends, like you always have to figure out what's going on. But there's nothing you don't need to do, and you watch one episode and it's completely different from the next. So
yeah, because there was only the handful of times that like Jerry had like a girlfriend for a long period of time, or not even long, but over a couple. Because I remember that he dated Janine Garofalo in a few episodes, and he was like serious with her because they were like so much alike and stuff like that. But like, yeah, for the most part, you didn't need to know something from season 2 to understand something in season 7.
Right.
It's like pick or choose. It's all like a la carte sort of episodes.
Yeah, Friends kind of had that going on for like the first 3 seasons, and then it was still okay in seasons 4 and beyond. Like there were some really good episodes there, but you're absolutely right, Ben. Like if you flip on a Friends episode from season 1 and then the next episode you see is from season 7, you're just not gonna see, like you'll be like, wait, what happened to Ross and Rachel? How did this happen? Right? Like there's backstory that you have to figure out. So that is one of the best parts of Seinfeld for sure. But But yeah, it's Seinfeld 1, and then whatever you want, you put anything else 2, but it's a distant 2.
Without a doubt, there's no other show that comes close to me than that. And it's funny too because I didn't really get into it till college. It was never anything when I was younger that I would ever watch. And then I know how much you liked it, Scott, and I think maybe that sort of played into it. And I started watching it more, and then all of a sudden I couldn't stop watching.
Yeah, and I think the other thing with Seinfeld that we touched briefly on is it got stronger as the years went on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
and the fact that for the most part it holds up still really well. Obviously without the ability to have cell phones and stuff like that back then, but for the most part, everything that happens is things that can somewhat be relevant now, so
Right.
Yeah, some of those issues are still issues that could be reasonable today, I suppose. Yeah.
There used to be a great Twitter account. It was Modern Seinfeld.
Yes.
And they stopped doing it, but it was really good. Where they would make up one I saw the other day. It was Elaine loves the way her new boyfriend smells, but finds out he uses Axe body spray, and she has to reassess her whole life. It's just silly things like that.
Yeah, I love all of that. So. All right, let's close up shop here tonight with Seinfeld going down as the GOAT in terms of television history. Is it the greatest show of all time, even compared to stuff like Breaking Bad or?
No, Breaking Bad was better, but I think
in a different way.
Yeah.
Hard. It's hard to compare the two because it's.
Well, and it's comedy compared to a show. It was comedy that was based out of an apartment, a diner, and a few other spots.
Yes.
While other shows, Breaking Bad from a cinematography standpoint was a beautifully, shot show. So it's tough to compare. But in the comedy world, I don't think anything comes close.
Yeah, no.
For sure.
Nothing.
Well, let's end the show so the Sunshine Cleaning crew can come in and recruit me to their cult.
Nice.
Matt, your closing thoughts.
Schmoopy.
Very good. Ben Russo.
You kind of summed it up. Just a great show. Literally one of the shows that if it's on, you have to watch it. It's really what it comes down to.
Hello.
La, la.
I'm slippery as an eel. All right, so for Ben Russo, Matt Urich, I'm Scott Sternal. Hopefully we'll get episode 26 up at some point this week. 27 I'll get up tonight, out of order, and hopefully I get the weekly up tomorrow if we can get some of our issues resolved with that episode. Subscribe on iTunes, because that would be great. Download, tell your friends. Read Matt on Bleacher Report. Follow us on Twitter at Winded City CD. Do all the usual stuff. Thanks for listening. Serenity now.